Hey there, and welcome back to another Proguides video. Today we're going to summarize the newest, deadliest, and most consistent offlane heroes for the current patch. You're not gonna want to miss this since our last video on this topic we discussed Mars, Silencer, and Enigma. Mars, second most picked hero in the game, and Offlane now fully recognizes Silencer as a standard position and is being abused by creative players like Zai, and Enigma, while not hugely popular, still has a huge win rate and hard counters some of the big meta picks like Juggernaut, Magnus, and Enchantress. We have 4 up-and-coming heroes to discuss, so let's get started. But first, you know how it goes, our question of the day. How would you feel if tri-lanes were meta? Especially as an offlaner, how would you have to deal with laning 1v3? This is by far the biggest left field development now that 7.27D has developed. Night Stalker was the single most picked hero in pro games for almost 2 years because of the way he abuses vision, and pros value vision to the utmost degree. Eventually, Night Stalker finally got put in the dumpster, but then Batman rose out of the well with an extremely broken new Ags, making his Q AoE. On top of that, broken Ag's crippling fear also became stupidly overpowered. Those 2 aspects got nerfed significantly, but apparently it wasn't nearly enough. Night Stalker hasn't gotten meaningful buffs in several patches, and in fact has more recently been nerfed than buffed. That's when you know a hero is truly OP. We were blind. Some minor nerfs made us believe Night Stalker was no longer broken, but he is indeed insane right now. In Divine and Immortal ranks, Night Stalker is sporting a fat 57.28% win rate. Players like Keizu, Luki, and Ramses have been farming MMR with this bad boy. Crippling Fear is easily a contender for the best spell in the game. Nothing counters it. What's your response to any other silence? Purges, right? Manta, Lotus, whatever. That doesn't work against Night Stalker. There's no escape. There's one other silence that can be compared to Crippling Fear, and that's Ricky's Smokescreen. What do you do against Smokescreen? Usually, you'd buy a Force Staff. So why can't we do that against Night Stalker? It's not nearly as good. The insane thing about the spell is that it moves with Night Stalker. You can force away from it, and that's okay, but what's stopping the 550 movement speed bat from just catching up to you right away after? Not much. You might be able to get away, but your team is probably still silenced and unable to help you. This spell was nerfed by 1 second in duration during night, but it actually got buffed in cooldown and it still lasts 7 freaking seconds. That's the longest silence in the game still, by the way. 7-second duration, 15-second cooldown. That's nearly 50% uptime, and the radius is excessively huge at 375, making it bigger than Ricky's Smokescreen. Dark Ascension, the ulti, is kind of sleeper insane as well. 150 damage, free nighttime, and flying movement and vision. Alright, crash course in Night Stalker real quick. Skill build starts out 2, 0, and 1. Take ulti whenever possible. Skip all talents on Night Stalker. Our skill points are way better. Most commonly, you'll max Void first, but if you're having a good game, max Hunter in the Night first instead. Look at the enemy heroes to determine how badly you need Crippling Fear. In general, if you're having a bad game, or if there's crucial heroes to silence, you should max this out second, or even first, but delayed by like level 10. Most commonly, you'll start out 2-1-2-1, so that you'll have signs to combine with the ulti, and from there it's all a judgment call. Once you do get level 15, we can finally start going talents. Take move speed. Void damage is better only if you're going for Ags, and that's pretty much the story of every one of the talents. They're all viable. In general, right-click Night Stalker will go for the damage-based talents, and a utility Night Stalker won't and will opt for the cooldown reduction at 25. As for team fighting, the first step is to identify the key silence targets and fly in a creative path at them. You have insane vision and freedom of movement, so you shouldn't just tunnel vision and clump with your team against AoE. Careful with your ult. You don't want to just pop it and have the enemy just leave. Night Stalker has a surprising amount of item builds, but the most basic would be small items like a bracer, wands, treads, or phase, drums, blink, and BKB. From there, if you're super farmed, something like Basher or Assault Cuirass. The Axe is okay, but most games it's way too greedy for an offlaner, especially one who's terrible at laning like Night Stalker, which is really his only weakness is his reliance on nighttime. The Guardian of the Deep, Stalker, has been slithering his way up to top tier. While Night Stalker offers both teamfight and carry potential, Stalker has been more about enabling your team and stunning, both of which he does amazingly, and with the added bonus of actually winning most lanes. Skill build is simple and could go unchanged for any situation. 1-1-4 into maxing sprint second. Most pub Slardars take Bash first, but few pros do that, and I would advise strongly against it as well. Instead, we take Crush for the rune fight and stunning the enemy in order to secure a last hit or deny while laning. Item build goes some combo of Bracer and or Wraithband, Phaser Treads, Windlace is a must because of the great synergy with the Q, and from there you can complete Drums or Rush Blink if you have an active draft that can rotate with you. If tanking is your primary objective, look no further than the Ags. The Puddle's insane. 40% status resistance, HP regen, armor, and gaining water bonuses from sprint. Oh, and we can still get the stats from the Ags itself. Be mindful of where your puddle is because leaving it can be risky. Combine this with a BKB or pipe, and no one can force you out of your puddles. Slardar's biggest weakness is his reliance on his first item and his lack of damage. Although Slardar himself tends to be one of the lowest damage dealers in the game, you have to remember the ult is increasing everyone else's damage. But what if you somehow ended up with a no good user of Corrosive Haze? If that's the case, Midas and even Mask of Madness can be options. You do have great synergy with attack speed, but typically you won't want to be so greedy. Make sure whenever you go looking to fight, you start out with 3 bash stacks. The difference between coming with 3 versus 0 is often outcome changing. The sooner we get that first bash, the sooner we can get the second, and so on. Talents are all viable, but most commonly will go damage, HP, corrosive amp, and undispellable corrosive. Slardar does well in all brackets, but I do especially love the ult for the trench. Not only do people not buy dispels, but just having this glowing mark target really helps the team choose a target, and any amount of added coordination is a great thing. The classic Batrider. This guy will never go out of style. Bat has the unique trump card aspect that very few offlaners have. If you don't have an answer for Batrider, he will take over the game. The Reign of Terror might not last long, and it might not start right away, but he will cause headaches and he will put fear into your heart. Nerfed maybe 20 times since TI3, Bat is still sitting pretty on a positive win rate in pro pubs. Bat actually has one of the biggest skill disparities of any hero. 42% win rate in Guardian and a 54.5% in Immortal. Not for the faint of heart, but if you have the skill, you'll get the wins. This hero naturally demands teamwork as well, which is obvious when you look at the item build he goes. All Bats these days rush Boots of Travel and look to join every team fight. Not exactly easy to replicate in the trench. Sticky Napalm, while nerfed a million times, did at least get a buff and that it can be cast without turning. This means that you can sticky behind you while running. Once maxed, this ability not only amplifies everything else about the hero, but it makes teamfights a slog in the early game. Bat is not a run-in or run-away hero. You run around. You circle your opponents like a bird of prey, abusing the reduced turn speed from the Sticky Napalm. If you do a tight enough circle, some heroes like Lion will simply never be able to cast a spell on you. Lasso remains a busted pick-off ability, and there are a lot of great matchups Bat is looking to prey upon in the safe lane right now. PA, CK, Sven, Monkey King, Void, pretty much anyone without a purge. Skill build is either 4-1-1 or 4-0-2, but if there are multiple purges on the enemy team, we opt for a 2-0-4, and from there, the build is up to you. Remember when you go in for a kill attempt not to hit the enemy hero until once you've passed them. Your first priority is getting up sticky stacks, and then it becomes touching them with Firefly. If we attack in between, then it only makes it harder to catch up with the Firefly. Alternatively, we can take Flame Break at level 4 to bounce them into our Firefly, but you better be prepared with a lot of mana for that. Item builds are very unique for Bat. It's 2 Sage Masks and some regen. The masks give us the mana to spam sticky, and that in turn provides us with the damage to last hit. Then we go Travels and can consider some combo of Drums, Blink, Force Staff, BKB, and Yules. The trees are out to get me, and Timbersaw? He's out to get you some MMR. Raise your hand if you like laning against Timber. Nobody raises their hand. Probably because this is just a YouTube video you're watching alone, but I'm choosing to believe it's because we all hate getting randomly counterpicked by Timbersaw. Now, it's normal to sometimes get crushed in lane by a Slardar or a Bat. 100% of players get crushed by Slardar. Get it? That was a really bad Slardar joke. Right, so anyways, Timbersaw not only can own you in lane, but then will actually hard carry the late game. In fact, that's why we see Timber mid just as often as offlane, and a few patches ago saw Timber safe lane more than offlane. This guy just so happens to be a tanky strength hero, but his main role is as a spellcasting carry. So the downside then is clear with offlane Timbersaw in this meta. The pos one is always greedy right now, and the mid usually a bit as well. Now we have the issue of adding another greedy core with Timber. So my first piece of advice would be don't pick this when your cores are PA and Medusa already. And then be aware of utility builds for Timber. You do not need Bloodstone. Builds like Soul Ring, Greaves, Pipes, Yules, and Halberd or Lotus into the last item scythe are much more prevalent on the pro offlane Timbers. That Scythe is especially crucial since you're an offlaner with no disable, which is frankly a terrible trait. Pipe is nearly an every game item on Timber. Your physical resistance is infuriatingly high. This guy heals from a tower hit by minute 8. Remember that the patch made the towers hit faster but softer? That was a buff to Timber. It helps you build up reactive armor faster. The number one mistake bad Timbers make is coming to teamfights without stacks. With full stacks, you have over 25 armor, but with no stacks, yeah, no armor. This means you should be standing in creep waves, standing under towers, standing anywhere incredibly aggressive to build up on those stacks. Even though as a hero we're greedy, this playstyle naturally enables the rest of our team since the enemy will be tempted to go on you because you're so deep in. There are a ton of strength heroes running around, and the current picking phase makes it super common to blind pick heroes into a very happy matchup against something like, I don't know, an Undying or a Sven. Oh, and also the rest of the heroes in the video, except of course, Bat. Bat does kinda wreck us. If you find yourself hard counterpicked by something like CM Ursa, take Chain level 1, or beg to swap lanes. You always want to max reactive by 7 though. There will be times that you can get away with other builds, but 90% of the time I see a deviation from this, it ends badly. Thanks for spending time with us, guys. We appreciate every single one of you. Let us know your answer to the question of the day, and feel free to suggest any future content. Like, sub, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. I'll see you soon with the top position 4s. See you later.